Welcome to Sunday, and we're getting ready to hear from some friends in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I'm really excited about this interview. There's going to be maybe half a dozen or so folks. I don't know if they're all guys. There might be one young woman involved too as well. So we'll have to see how things go. But I wanted to come on early just to first of all wish all of you who are celebrating Easter the Orthodox way, which is 1 week later than many people. I just wanted to wish you happy Resurrection Day. And I trust that you've been celebrating the resurrection, not only of Christ, but of the hope that we as Christian believers have. Clearly, it's marked out clearly in 1 Corinthians and other places that our hope is not in dying and then floating up to heaven as a ghost, but in the resurrection that happens at the coming of Christ that coincides with that. So hopefully you found some time to carve out to celebrate that coming resurrection, because that's really our hope. And a hope is something that's in the future. And so I just want to wish all of you a great Resurrection Day. And Serena and I have been focusing on that this morning, listening to Andrew Peterson's Resurrection Letters concert. And so we're going to get back to that a little bit later. But I thought what I would do before the guys come on, and if you are in Northern Ireland and you're listening right now and you're trying to sign on, you'll eventually show up on the bottom of my screen, and then I will press a button, and then that will populate all of your the entire screen, and so we'll be able to hear from all of you. So hopefully everything works out technically, and I'm suspecting that they will start coming on, signing on momentarily here. But I thought I would do a song that reminds us that the Father's love is deep and wide for the Son and for his bride, and we're his bride, the bride of Christ. That whole matrimony symbolism in the scriptures points to Jesus as the bridegroom, and we, the collective church of Christ, and all the people, really, it's all the people who are believers are going to be married, if you will, or joined with our Savior, with our King when he returns, and we are resurrected. Of course, if you're alive at that time, you'll be caught up. Some people call that a rapture, but it's just a means by which you're not dead, so you can't be resurrected, but you're alive, so you're changed, you're transformed. And Paul addresses that in several of the epistles that you can read about later. But anyway, this is a song called My Father's Love is Deep and Wide. The first time I heard the song was way back when in Portland, I think at Hinson Baptist Church. Michael Card and several guests were there singing. And one guy, I think he was from Orcas Island, in the San Juan Islands area up in Washington, close to Seattle. And Brian Moss was his name. And I think he did this song, and I just loved it. I just thought the words were so wonderful. And Michael Card does it, I think, with a band. I'm not a banjo player, but that it sounds pretty cool when it's on the banjo. I'm just going to take a moment because I might be getting texts from Keith. Keith is one of the guys who is going to be coming on. So anyway, I'm going to do the song, and if you guys can hear me, if you could hold tight, I will let you on momentarily. Okay. All right, here we go. The Father's love is deep and wide for the Son and for his bride, and his grace has been outpoured through the passion of our Lord. Down the road and up the hill, let him go of his own will, for the sake of all the lost, grace not cheap but with a cost. The truth of God was tested, tried. Flesh was torn, they pierced his side. Through the crown, his blood did flow, going where we could not go. Savior God, the wounded King, sings the song we cannot sing. Adam died, but Christ now lives. We have sinned still, he forgives. He bids us come. The Savior calls our souls to bend, not to our will, but to his end. And while his grace does satisfy, he bids us come to come and die. The table stained with truth and grace, the chalice poured, set in place. Hold the cup and lift it high. Now drink with me, we go to die. Not by our life, not by our death, not by the words we fill with breath, not by the works our hands have done, not through our daughters or our sons, not by the treasure that we give, do we gain the right to live. The only way we will know life is through the one named Jesus Christ. The only way we will know life is through the one named Jesus Christ. All right. Well, I'm waiting about 4 minutes or so. We should have the Irish guys and maybe a gal show up. And you never know, there might be some technical issues. It's the first time doing this. So I'm just going to text them and tell them to come online anytime. And once I see them in my little staging room, my little green room, then I will know that they're good to go. Well, I hope all of you have had exciting spring. We are working on a project to put raised beds using cedar, untreated cedar. I don't know if you've priced that lately, but it is crazy expensive. Apparently, I was told it's not as expensive as it was during the COVID days, but still, it's quite expensive. But anyway, we've got the fence moved, almost done with that. Worked on the gate, working on the gate, and I think everything is going to be good to go here pretty soon. So again, forgive me for just a moment. I'm just monitoring my email, make sure that all the guys in Ireland are okay coming on and so forth. So okay, all right. Well, I thought I might just play another song while I'm waiting for the Irish guys to come on. And I'm so looking forward again to learning about a little bit more about Belfast. Some of you probably don't know the history of Belfast and the period of history called the Troubles. So I thought I'd maybe ask them a few questions about that. But it's really interesting how I connected with these gentlemen through one of them in particular who met me in Colorado Springs in the summer of 2010 at a conference. And so I'm going to save that story for when they come on, but it's a really fascinating, story behind all of that. So I'm just going to check my guest list. Yes. Okay. So that's looking good. Okay. And again, I'm just kind of singing some songs and waiting for them to sign on here officially at 2:30. So I will praise you, oh my Redeemer. I will praise you, oh my Redeemer. You are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy of all praise. I will praise you, oh my Redeemer. I will praise you. See you guys. Oh, my Redeemer, for you are worthy. Yes, you are so worthy. Oh, you are worthy of all praise. And if I don't praise your name, even the rocks will cry out. And if I don't praise your name, oh, even the mountains will shout. And if I don't praise your name, even the rocks will cry out. And if I don't praise your name, even the mountains will shout. Okay, Irish guys, I'm going to bring you on in a minute, but while you're sitting there, you can sing along with us. Oh, I will praise you, oh, my Redeemer. I'll praise you, oh, my Redeemer, for you are worthy. You are so worthy. Oh, you are worthy of all praise. And if I don't praise your name, oh, even those rocks will cry out. And if I don't praise your name, oh, even the mountains will shout. If I don't praise your name, even the rocks will cry out. And if I don't praise your name, yes, even those mountains will shout. All right, I'm going to turn the camera on here so our Irish friends can join us. 3, 2, 1, and there you go. Hey, Trevor. Who do I see? Is that Alan?
No, that's Steven.
Steven. Hi, Steven. I'm sorry, you're way back there, so it's hard to see, and I think it's the first time.
He's shy.
Yeah, well, you know, have you ever heard of Garrison Keillor, who used to do Prairie Home Companion here? It was a radio show. Well, he used to talk about being shy, and he wanted to start a shy rights movement for people who wanted equal rights for being shy. Hey, who do we have here? I'm going to put my headphones on just a minute here because I'm able to hear better. Okay, let's see. We've got Connor, Trevor, Stephen, and Keith, right?
Yes.
Hey,
Connor,
Connor, let me get you on here, Connor. I got to turn you on. So I had to turn the camera on. Okay, there we go. Now, are we expecting any more, Keith?
No, that's just plus yourself.
Okay, well, hey guys, thanks for staying up late. And this isn't late for you, right?
No,
You guys
it's
have
8:34. No, I'm not that old yet.
well, I figure probably in reality you stay at the pub till 1 a.m. probably most nights, right?
Then they kick you out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for taking the time out to join in. It's funny. When I started this YouTube channel, you guys kind of followed me, and I made little episodes. But lately, I've been
what's your
I've been
YouTube
having
channel?
I've been having all these interviews with people, so it's kind of been interesting. I've turned into like Dr. Phil or something, Mr. or Oprah. But anyway, why don't you guys just I'm going to go around. I'll start with Keith and Trevor and then Steven. And, if you're courageous enough, I don't want to push you into any direction, but just if you could just state your name and then tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what do you do as for a job, or do you have a wife, or children? And then maybe just say one thing. What's your favorite thing about living in Belfast? Because I'd sort of like this to be a time where people learn about Belfast and the history of Belfast a little bit. And then I'd like to get into how we all got together, and what we have in common and our spiritual journey with regard to that. Okay. So Keith, let me just start by saying this. I'm going to give a little introduction about how I got into Keith's life, and then I want Keith to share about his. So about 2009, I was invited to go on a bike ride down the Danube River, not on the river, of course, but I need a boat for that, but along the river. And a gentleman by the name of Bill Ramey was going to teach. Now, I knew Bill Ramey's brother Steve for many years because he would fly into Kazakhstan, and he was kind of like a shepherd mentor kind of guy that would come in and help us out with various things. But anyway, so I thought, okay, I think I could trust this guy if it's Steve's brother Bill. So anyway, I'm getting ready to go on this trip, and then I start investigating Bill Ramey's website. It's still called inthebeginning.org.
Yep.
Okay. So I started because I'm curious. Okay, hey, I hear he's going to teach on Hebrews, so I wonder what some of his teaching's like. So I start listening to this thing called Dying to the Resurrection. I'm in my backyard watering, and I have my iPod Touch, I think is what I was using. And I'm going, what is this stuff? Is this Jehovah Witness stuff? What is this stuff? And I started getting kind of like, oh my, what am I getting myself into? Because he's talking about the soul, and we don't have an immortal soul. We're mortals, and we require a resurrection in order to see Jesus in the age to come, etc. And it was just new stuff to me, totally new. I mean, it would, but then when I checked the Bible, I went, wait a minute, this guy's not wrong. It's like, I can't find anything to refute him. So I kind of went along thinking, all right, I know Steve, and Steve wouldn't lead me down a bad, crazy pathway, because I know Steve and I trust Steve. He's a solid guy. So I went to Austria, and I had all kinds of questions for Bill. I grabbed him every chance I got. Yeah, but what about the thief on the cross? Yeah, but what about 2 Corinthians 5? Yeah, but what, all the typical stuff. And then on top of that, we learned we're studying Hebrews, okay? And I'm going, wait a minute, Jesus is not playing basketball with incoming ghosts? You mean Jesus isn't playing with little dogs that have gone up into heaven after people die? You mean Jesus isn't frolicking in the woods with Bambi and Thumper? I thought Jesus was like having fun and partying with people. Oh, he's a high priest? Like he does that all the time? Wow. And it changed my thinking, my paradigm about what Jesus is doing and what happens to me when I die. So anyway, So then I went home, and then I met these people in Canada. Sabrina and I, we Bill told us about these people called the McMillans up in Canada. So I thought, okay, maybe we'll go visit them. This is weird, but okay, we've never met them. So we go in the border. I'm at the Canadian border, and the lady says, "Oh, why are you coming to Canada?" Well, we met this guy on the internet, and she looked at me like, "What guy on the internet? This sounds fishy." I didn't think they were gonna let us in. But then I remember we got to the McMillan's door, Ian and Ann McMillan, and I look at Sabrina and I said, "This is weird, isn't it? We're just showing up at this guy's door in Canada. This is." And we kind of went, "Well, maybe it's a God thing. Maybe it's just one of those crazy things God sets you up for." And sure enough, we got to know them, and they had a lot in common with us. And of course, they're hilarious to be around, and we got to know their kids, their triplet daughters, and then Courtney, our daughter, took several trips up north visiting them. And anyway, so along comes summer 2010, and Bill and Steve and Ian, I think they were the organizers. They decided to have a conference at the Navigator headquarters in Colorado Springs, in this beautiful place with a castle called Glen Area, and Keith knows, Garden of the Gods, beautiful rock formations. And along comes this guy. I think you were in your running gear or something. You came early,
I
and
came my own. It was I traveled my own because I remember listening to Ian online, and obviously yourself. I never met you before.
right, and it was your first time on an airplane, right?
No, I think Bill got that wrong.
Oh, okay. So
Uh,
anyway, I met Keith, and he started talking about running, and I learned, okay, he's a runner, and I'm from Eugene, or I went to school at Eugene, so I said, hey, Hayward Field. Oh yeah, Hayward Field. Oh yeah, Olympic trials. Steve Prefontaine. So right away, I even though I'm not a runner, I could connect with some of the things in his life, and so then we got to know Keith, and first of all, I had to get my ear used to hearing Irish. So it's like, okay, I'm hearing Scottish with the McMillans. Now I gotta learn Irish. And then, but after a while, I got the I started going into the flow of the accent, and understanding what he was saying. And because I think you were talking pretty fast.
I still do that. Bill Ramey could never get me. He could never understand me.
I see. I listen to British mysteries like Vera, Shetland. There was one Irish one I used to watch about the guard. The guard. What was this? I can't remember the actor was in Downton Abbey, but I can't remember the name of the show. Anyway, so I'm used to hearing British like idioms and like Northern English accents and stuff, because it's about all I listen to or watch are British mysteries. But anyway, we got to know Keith. Now, Keith, take it from there. What
Do you want me to go from Colorado?
yeah. Well, tell us first of all. Tell us about yourself, and let's do that. Let's go around and introduce ourselves, and then
I'm sort of just from a Christianity point, or just from before Christianity, or
well, why don't you? Let's just go around and introduce ourselves first, and then I'm going to come back to
my name's Keith, obviously, and I've got 2 kids, Caleb and Jasmine, and I'm married to Caroline, and obviously Caroline runs a beauty salon. I work in the post, and so what do you call it? And I do a lot of running, keen on running, well, coaching now.
Yeah,
It's sort of my life, and obviously I'm very keen in the Bible, reading the Bible and studying the scriptures.
right. And your latest thing I noticed is making really awesome memes, posters and things that kind of condense a single truth, for people to see visually, which is a really powerful thing.
I think I've got a touch of, I don't know now, my wife would say I have, Karen, a touch of ADHD. So it's sort of the way I would visualize things. So,
Yeah.
so in school, I sort of very shy, timid. And now as I get older, and I sort of just encourage myself to study. I think I learned that from America. Like so yourself, Tony, and Bill and Ian sort of really opened my eyes to things. Because before that, as you know, when you first met me, very shy, timid kid.
Yeah.
So I've come out of my shell a wee bit. But when I'm studying, I have to sort of visualize things.
Right. Yeah.
Especially, so it's like when my granddad was a Presbyterian, went to church, the sort of you listen to one verse, you go home, but you don't fully understand it. And then obviously when I met Ian and Bill on their sermons, and I started going, starting to make sense. It never made sense to me before, as we've talked about before. And then that's where
Keith, what do you mean? What never made sense to you?
well, I believed in God as a young boy. Always believed in God, but then I started going outside as well. And the pressure, you're scared to say you believe in God, and then you go in this, you go down the path, the wrong path. And then obviously, I believe God lifted me out of that path. And then you go to church and it's heaven and hell, but you don't fully understand. I obviously feared the concept of hell, but I didn't know how to study. And then I went to certain churches, and there was a lot of confusion in my mind. That's what happens in this life. It's a lot of confusion and everything. So then I started going to different meetings, and they're all preaching different things.
Right.
I couldn't get my head around that. Why is there so many churches and there's so many different views of the Bible? That's probably how I fit. And then Ian McMillan, Alan sent me an audio of Ian, and he just went into the context. And then I was like, "Whoa, now it's starting to make sense."
Yeah.
The journey now, it hasn't been perfect. I've made mistakes along the way because it's a good message, good news, but it tests you.
Yes.
It hits the heart. It shows
Right.
you how much we need God.
Right.
But from a visualization point of view, it's how I sort of would study. Even from a running coaching point of view, if I'm trying to learn something, I have to try and visualize it to see.
Right. And are you teaching your daughter some running techniques now as well?
Just a bit of fun. It's just, I don't want to put any pressure. Just if she asked me to go out maybe say we're going to her granny's house and she wants to do a few strides, I would take a video of it and then show her to work on her arms and stuff like that and how she lands. But it's all, I don't want to put, so she does the park run sometimes on a Sunday, but I would never force her to do, if she wants to go out running, I would never force it onto her. So she does a lot of jiu-jitsu and on a Friday night and swimming, just all different multi-sports.
I'm running into that a bit with my grandson right now. He wanted to start playing guitar, so he got a guitar and I taught him a few chords, but he's learning that you're never going to get better unless you practice. And so, I'll teach him something. Here's 3 chords. Here's a song you can do with those 3 chords. I don't know if you know the song, the Crawdad song. You get a line, I'll get a pole, honey. You get a line, I'll get a pole, babe. You get a line, I'll get a pole. We'll go down to the crawdad hole, honey, baby. It's like a bluegrass hillbilly song, but it uses 3 fairly easy chords. But I don't think he practices, so he's learning that Grandpa's not going to teach you any new stuff until you practice the old stuff. Trevor knows because he's a teacher. He runs into this stubborn stuff all the time. But anyways,
something you say there. That's what I've learned from even studying the scriptures, and even from Tony and good mentors, and even from the running side, you have to study and you have to keep studying. You make mistakes along the way and keep practicing. I sort of tell my kids that keep practicing.
Right.
So I think the trouble, I don't know, just the education a wee bit behind. It's only now I'm starting to learn as a 40-year-old or 41-year-old.
Right. Yeah, you're getting old, man. You're getting old. Hey, quickly, what's your favorite thing about Belfast, living in Belfast, would you say?
Belfast, you got me. Family, well, just in the area, just simple life. I love probably Victoria Park, the park my granda went to. It's probably, I'm addicted to. I love running around Victoria Park. I live a very simple life.
Yeah.
Sort of live a wee bubble. Don't sort of go to work, go to the park, do a bit of running, do a bit of coaching,
right.
And then have kids. I live for my kids.
Hey, that's consuming. Having kids is consuming. So, yeah, that's just your stage of life right now. It's consuming because you've got kids.
But that would be the main, probably fun. And as I say, simple life. Just I love going down the park for a run.
Well, great. Hey, Trevor, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a tutor. We're actually in my office right now. If I tilt that up, this is where we're sitting. This is my office in Belfast. I'm married to Heather. No kids. We've been married 16 years, maybe coming on 17 years now. And
wow, congratulations.
Just a little dog to keep us company, little Madge. That's enough for us. What else about me? I was a teacher like yourself, so kindred spirit that way. Neither of us now involved in the public sector, which has its advantages, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Although I think things are a bit things were a bit wilder over there in the States than here in Northern Ireland. But I've been a tutor for coming on 5 years. Yeah, so it's 4 years full time, 5 years since I started the business. And what else? Well, I got to know Keith. I got to know Keith before I got to know you guys. You know, names that you're mentioning there. There's Bill, there's Ian, and the Ian and Anne. So around 2010 was when I met Keith. I was at that stage I was training to be a teacher, so I had to go across to England for half a year to do most of my course there. And Alan, who's not here this evening, Alan would send me Ian's teachings, a lot of Ian's teachings. Now the teachings there were focused on the kingdom, which wasn't a new concept for me. I had been I'd been involved in a local evangelical church very close to where we are now. I had been involved in that for about 10 years or so, but was starting to have some difficulties, more just focused, concepts like biblical concepts like the coming kingdom. Mm-hmm. So it's strange the way it worked, because the first teachings that I heard from Ian just happened to be a series that wouldn't have been that controversial to listen to, and were more down the lines of thinking that I would have had. But then I came back from England then, and once I'd finished my teaching qualifications, he shared with me, Alan shared some of the Dying to the Resurrection series, I think it was, from Bill. And just like you, I found it difficult to get my head around. So, maybe took a few weeks or so, of just going over it and over it again before just like you would say, yeah, this is biblical here. And things are making a lot more sense. And teachings regarding the soul and heaven, and a lot of it ties in really closely with resurrection teaching, with the kingdom. Right. And so that's when I decided to, I better not be part of there's no point being part of a local church that's not going to accept that sort of teaching. So then just since then I've known Keith, Alan, Stephen here, who's going to introduce himself shortly. And maybe we've just sort of renewed contact the last year or so. Yeah. And no, I don't think I've got much more interest. How's my accent? Should I speak in an English accent to make it easier for you to follow me?
I'm understanding you perfectly. I have no problem at all understanding you at all. Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm quite sure. I'm quite sure, mate.
We could be a little bit more refined for you if you like.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So I don't think there's much more. Oh, what do I like about Belfast? Living in Belfast. I don't live in Belfast. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You live in the place that Prince Charles comes to if he wants to check out Northern Ireland or be in Northern Ireland, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he came last week. We had an important anniversary in Northern Ireland this week, but I know King Charles was over, and so was Joe.
Yes, I've seen that news clips on that.
There's Joe doing everything as smoothly as normal.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Joe and the Prime Minister, but normally they would come to the little town where I live. It's called Hillsborough. Okay. So I've only been living there for coming on 2 years.
Yeah. And your wife she interprets for businesses, right? Is she still doing that?
No, she did. No, she did have you're right. There was a previous job, but it was because of her. She's fluent in French and Portuguese and Spanish. So she worked with international markets for a private firm up until about 7 years ago, 6 or 7, 2015. How long ago was that? 8 years ago. 8 years ago.
Wow.
Now she works for the local main university here.
Okay.
Just recruiting international students, dealing with, international students at Queen's University in Belfast. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
She could certainly do interpreting, no problem.
It's interesting, just a side note here, where we moved to in Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas. First of all, it's the headquarters of Walmart,
Right.
So it's also the headquarters of Tyson Chicken. And it's the headquarters of JB Hunt, which is like an international shipping company. Uh-huh. And then it's also the headquarters of Daisy BB Gun. Do you remember the Christmas Story? You'll put your eye out with that. You ever see the Christmas Story? That's the Daisy, the Red Ryder BB gun, the makers of the Red Ryder BB gun. So Daisy BB gun is here. So it's interesting, but because Walmart has such a need for software engineers, there's a high number of people from India here. And in fact, our neighbor just moved in. He's from India. And I asked him right off the bat, I said, "Are you a software engineer for Walmart?" Yes. and he, and they already invited us over for Indian food. So we're looking forward to that. But just about, I would say less than a quarter mile from where I'm sitting, Walmart has its 7 stories below the earth. They have their data center. So they're figuring all their marketing and stuff, and they've got cyclone fencing around it and even guards with guns. I don't know what they're worried about. If the Chinese steal their secrets of how to, move merchandise from one aisle to the next. I don't know what they're worried about. But anyway, it's really interesting. It's got concertina wire all around it and everything. But it's a very fascinating place to live. I didn't know much about Arkansas, but we're learning more and more about it. But and you guys are always welcome if you want to take a trip to America and bypass the typical landmarks of San Francisco and LA and Disneyland. Come to Arkansas and we'll give you a really good time. We might even feed you squirrel if you're lucky. In the Ozarks. Yeah, this is Ozark country. So hey, Stephen, how about you? Now I know you're shy. I don't want to push you beyond what you feel comfortable with, but if you would just let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yes, no problem, Tim. It's nice to meet you at last and speak to you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
Connor, we don't know, Trevor and I don't know Connor, so Connor.
Hi, Connor, as well.
Oh, hi, Connor.
Yeah.
Hello.
We'll get to you in a minute.
Your time's coming. So I live about 10 minutes walk away from Trev's office here. Trev used to live around the corner from me, but we've been friends for about 25 years, I would guess.
Wow.
I was at Trev's best man at his wedding. Trev was at my wedding, although I'm single now, but we've always been close and went to the same church that Trev mentioned too, down the road.
Okay.
So personally, I'll go into my background of how I came to get in touch with you guys. So I was brought up in sort of an evangelical church all my life. My granddad was a brethren preacher. Not a firebrand one, mind you, very mild-mannered brethren preacher.
Did you say brethren? Did you say brethren? Okay. Is that like Plymouth Brethren?
Yeah. Sort of, not just quite as strict, I don't think, but along those lines, yes.
Okay.
So my granddad was like a second dad to me, and I spent a lot of time with him. Him and my granny would have got me to memorize the Bible, and my mum and dad would take me to church every week, and I would have been involved in your equivalent maybe of Scouts.
Okay.
Have Scouts? Or is that a UK thing?
Like some churches have something called Awanas, like the Baptist churches. It's like Scouts, Boy Scouts.
Yeah, that type of thing. So
yeah.
I was involved in that, and then I became a leader in that at another church where I was involved in that. So I was heavily involved in mainstream church. But I will say, like, when I was in the church, I would have been reading verses in the Hebrews and things, and there would have been troubling me, like, about, it didn't seem to me like the gospel was as easy as what I was hearing from the pulpit.
Yeah.
So there's verses that would have stuck in my head, and I would ask questions. What does this verse mean in Hebrews? And I would have got an answer, but it didn't satisfy me that it was real, was true. And then I'd have been reading the Gospels, maybe myself at home, and I would have seen, like, the rich young ruler coming to Jesus and saying, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Now, I wasn't even thinking about that not heaven thing then. I was just looking at the straight answer. And Jesus didn't just say to him, "Well, just believe on me and all your sins will be forgiven." He said to him, "Keep the commandments, love God." And then the rich young ruler said, "I've done all those things." And then Jesus had compassion on him. So I was sort of getting the vibe this guy was telling the truth, but Jesus didn't tell him to do the things that we would have been told in church. He told him to do certain things. And then whenever Jesus told him to do another thing, he went away sorrowful. So I was seeing things like that going, this isn't as easy. Whoever puts his hand to the plow and turns back is not worthy of me. Verses like that, I am the vine, you're the branches. If you abide in me, you'll bear fruit. If you don't abide in me, you will be cut off, cast into the fire. So I had all those questions in my head. So basically, as I got older, I became a little bit disenfranchised with church in general. I still went, but I didn't, and then all the end times talk of, is Jesus coming before the tribulation, after the tribulation? I just got so confused, like Keith was saying earlier. All
Sure.
these doctrines, and I was reading things, didn't seem to be matching up, and I just sort of ended up drifting. I didn't not believe it, but I didn't really have anything to believe because I didn't know what was true.
Right.
So I had been in touch with Trev and Alan as well, and Trev would have told me some of the books that him and Alan would have been reading or things that they would have been listening to. And another friend of Alan's called Sam, who worked down at a local sort of gym swimming pool place, and I had discussions with them. But Keith, I didn't know Keith at the time, but Trev invited me along to hear Tony Stinson.
Right.
He was in Belfast.
He was in Belfast at the time because of Keith's visit with you guys previously.
Yeah, let me just interject here. So if anybody's listening, they might not know. So Tony is a friend of, I mentioned Bill Ramey earlier. Tony lives in Georgia, and he and Bill have been longtime friends. And Tony, I can't remember the business. Isn't he a financial advisor or something like that?
Yeah.
But he is really a good, gifted speaker and knows the scriptures well. And he and his daughters and wife were also in Colorado when Keith and I were there. And he took a trip to Belfast, and he did a thing on Romans, didn't he? With you guys?
I had a house study, and that's when I met Stephen.
Yes, that's the first time I met Keith.
We done Tony came over and done Romans. And then we had I had a sermon in the Park Avenue in the hotel. There's a group of us. So that was that was the year after Colorado. Tony came over.
Yes. Yeah. I remember all of that because I remember you guys talking about the reaction of maybe family members or other people who used to go to church with, and it was a little contentious. I remember you saying, but anyway, so Stephen, what's your favorite thing about Belfast, living in Belfast?
The people, Tim, definitely. People are very down to earth. They're a lot of people. I've worked in companies like in call centers, contact centers, and I've managed people from all over the world.
Right.
And they come from. There was a time I was working for Electronic Arts, the game company, and there was like 12 different languages, all answering calls in Belfast for game support. Every single one of them that came here, I would say every one of them loved it here, and probably most of them still live here. And it's not because of the weather, no way.
It's probably like Oregon, where I used to live. Yeah.
It's the people, Tim. Everybody always says the people are just lovely. I remember a German guy saying he went home over Christmas or something, and he said he got off the train, somebody bumped into him and just walked off. And he said that was the point he remembered that he was back in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We moved here from Oregon, and the people we had some very close neighbors and very, very friendly people that we knew, don't get me wrong. But moving here, I don't know if it's because it's a smaller population or what, but it just seems like people are so nice. And it's rare to run into a person who doesn't believe in God here. This is called the Bible Belt, this area of the United States. And it's really true that there's more of a culture of Christianity here. And so, for instance, we're going to go to Branson, which is a big music. It's kind of like a Las Vegas for Christians. It's a big country music mecca that people go to. It's a big entertainment city in Missouri, southern Missouri. And they have an amusement park there called Silver Dollar City. It's like Disneyland for Christians because it's like everywhere you go, there's this Christian kind of, there's a sense that it's okay to talk about Jesus. You don't have to feel ashamed. You don't have to be politically correct. You're totally fine talking about Jesus. So I've had conversations constantly with people, strangers at Walmart and other places. It's really interesting going from Oregon, where I felt so oppressed, especially, Trevor, you'll understand, working in Portland public schools, like one of the most liberal districts in the United States. And all they did was propaganda on the kids, propaganda. And so if you were different or out of line, man, it was like being Daniel in the lion's den every day. Every day I'd walk into that building and I could feel the oppression. I could feel it, or at a staff meeting, or especially when all the teachers from the district came together, I just felt so alone. So anyway, I'm a big proponent of living in places with nice people. That's good. Hey, Connor, tell us about yourself. How old are you?
Okay, I'm 30 years old, and where will I start about myself, or about how I got into faith, or I guess I'll start with
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Tell us about yourself, and are you a student, or are you working somewhere, or
Well,
what?
I'm married. I'm actually on my second year of marriage, so I am.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I have a wee dog, and we are in wanting to have kids right now.
Yeah.
And I work as a swimming teacher, so I do at Templemore Swim and
Really?
Fitness Centre, the same
Oh.
wee place where Steve was saying that that guy, Sam.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
That's actually who I first talked to about the Bible and the better understanding, because I too was like, I wasn't a Christian as a kid. I didn't become saved till I was like in my 20s, but I just got confused, and when I talked to him, he kind of believed the same stuff Keith believes in, and then that's about the whole high priest,
Hmm.
and then also met Keith through Templemore because he knew that guy at the time, and then Keith actually coaches me for running.
Oh, really? So you do swimming and running then, huh?
Yeah, I do swimming and running.
Your heart must be in really good shape then.
Yeah, just have to take up the bike for a triathlon.
Yeah. Oh man. Keith knows this, and Trevor, because I shared it with him, but I won't go into the whole story, but when I retired, I experienced something I never thought I would experience. It started with insomnia. It moved to anxiety, and then it moved to depression. And during that period of about 1.5 years, I sat on the couch, and I used to ride my bike 20 miles a day, almost every day. But I sat on the couch because I didn't even want to wake up,
Yeah,
and I would just stare at my phone, watching British mysteries, because it would, they're cerebral, so it kept my mind active. I have to give it to the British; they know how to make cerebral mysteries, and the characters. They know. I love how they choose their characters. Anyway, uh, but I would just stare at my screen. I mean, I would sometimes have like, you have spent 12 hours on your. If my wife would have seen, I mean, she would have gone ballistic. I mean, so, but I have to say, what was depressing about that was, the what
yeah,
you lose just in your body's ability to move. And then I was starting to have joint problems. Fortunately, I'm back on track now, and since
that's
moving
impressive.
here, and I thank you. And I mean, it's been the Lord's doing. That's a whole other story. But um, physical fitness is so important. And my wife, we moved into a house that has a wood burning stove, and the man who lived here, they left a bunch of wood, and my wife encouraged me to go outside and chop the wood because we needed it for the winter, because that's our main heat source. And so through that activity, I finally got my physical fitness, at least my upper body stuff going. And oh, I felt so much better. It just the sheer change of going from laying around like a bum to, exercising. It did wonders to my mental health. But anyway, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. I just had to say that about physical fitness.
Oh yeah. Yeah, through knowing Keith, I just sort of would have watched Bill, wasn't it? I would have watched his
Oh, the dying to the resurrection stuff?
I would have watched the end of the resurrection stuff, which I learned a lot about. And then I done one of them lives about I think it was months ago, I can't remember when it was.
Talking about we had a live. You talking about the live feed with Tony? We had a Skype. I think is that with Tony once.
Oh, okay. You had a conversation with Tony, live interview or
Yeah.
something?
And it
Okay.
actually cleared up a lot of information, because I sort of cleared up a lot of stuff I've thought about, like hell, because first I did sort of learn about that the consequences of sin is just like death,
Hmm.
but then in Revelations, when it said the wicked will burn for forever and ever, when he talked about what it really meant was age of ages, I cleared a
Yeah.
lot of stuff up.
Right, right. Yeah, that's funny you should say that because we're going to a church that's Southern Baptist, which is it's
Yeah.
my first experience with Southern Baptist, and of course we're going there for the relationships, and they talk about heaven and stuff. But I'm like when I go to Sunday school, like I just take out my Bible and say, yeah, but I'm the yeah but guy, yeah, but yeah, but yeah, but they probably think my name is yeah,
Yeah.
but the teacher one day said he was kind of talking, there's actually people who believe in annihilation, he says. And I said, "Hey, can I just ask a question?" Because they were talking about how, well, it's only fair if God makes you suffer forever and ever and ever and ever. And I raised my hand. I said, "Yeah, but where in the Bible does it say that we have an immortal?" I said, "Don't we have to have? Wouldn't you have to have an immortal soul to suffer forever? So where in the Bible does it say we have one?" And
A
of
lot of
course,
the
crickets.
so
And then
a lot of the people that sort of believe in the eternal hell will say, "Who are we to say what's fair and unfair of God to do?" You see, that's what
yeah,
their reckon will be
right.
to that. I go to a
Well,
wee local church, so I do, and they teach heaven and hell, but I go for more the relationships like yourself, for the relationships and the
yeah,
fellowship.
yeah. And sometimes my wife and I, we have conversations. Is this the right thing to do? Should we keep doing this? And I feel like there are enough people there who seem like they're willing to talk to me. And as long as there's still people who are willing to talk to me and not treat me like a heretic, then I'm going to probably just keep going. But I feel like I need times like this where I can
Yeah,
please, and where I can get together with people who essentially see the same paradigm or have the same paradigm, and we can encourage one another because it's like going to church becomes like warfare because you're hearing stuff that's not matching what is true.
yeah.
Just one side note, because you were bringing up the whole kind of what the Bible calls it. It calls it the second death. It never calls it the suffering forever and ever and roasting and feeling pain for entire year. It calls it second death. So I asked myself, well, what's death? Well, you die and then
And it also,
you're dead. So here's what I was thinking. And again, I could be wrong, but it's just what I'm thinking at this point. Wouldn't it be awful enough for God to like temporarily wake you up out of your rotting, in the grave for just a temporary hearing of the sentence? You missed out. I sent my son. You didn't respond. You had a lot of chances. Now bow your knee and confess that he is Lord. Now go into the lake of fire and die again. I mean, isn't that enough of a horror? Because I don't buy this whole thing that it can only be justice if you roast forever and ever and you feel the pain forever and ever. I just don't buy that anymore. I don't know. It's just kind of what I've been thinking lately.
That's
yeah,
logical.
it's logical, so it is. In fact, I think I was once I learned about that, they're sort of teaching that death just means death. I was very relieved because that was one of the off-putting things, was that thing about, and a lot of people I know it puts them off Christianity because they're like, well, what sort of loving God would make you burn forever and ever if,
Mhm. Well, and if God is a God of justice, you kind of wonder. I mean, and I'm not here to try to. I mean, God we're deserving of whatever the worst thing He could throw at us would
yeah,
be. I get that.
100%.
I'm a sinner. I deserve the worst thing. But it seems to be more reflective of ultimate justice.
Yeah, the
To
character of
just,
God.
hey, you're going to die again. And I don't think God takes delight. He doesn't take delight in the death of of any of the wicked. He doesn't want to see people. Yeah, he has wrath, but I don't think he goes, ha, 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 ha. It's so fun to see them roast. I mean, I just don't see that God is that way.
See
You
the
know,
Tim, see the whole hell, the heaven and hell doctrine. Does that not give the person who's sent, it's like an authority, like a control thing? It's
Yeah,
like sending other people to hell. Well, I've always meditated the gospel of the kingdom's good. It's good news. It's the delivery from something. So all the things I've done in the past, when Jesus says abide in me, and you see what Jesus is teaching, this is me visualizing, love your neighbor.
right,
And obviously
right.
people twist that, but adultery, murder, lying, cheating, littering, abuse. You can see what God's rescuing you from, and you can
Right.
see things function. People are
Yeah.
cheating, people are lying. We're trained that way, and I always say this to my kids: when you're watching a TV program, it's always set up a certain way to harm your neighbor.
Yeah.
Bad guy, the good guy. You can
Right.
see it, and you can see what God's trying to. But the hell things, like, it gives someone a pastor authority. Now, not everyone. Life's not black and white. I've learned this from coaching. Life's not black and white. One doesn't fit all. But sometimes you can get that authority. You start judging other people. But once you start realizing what I am, then you can look at. I don't know if that makes sense. But I've always found that hell. It's sort of, it helped me in certain ways in the past, but it actually can be harmful too. The people's
Yeah,
mental health.
I don't know if you guys have experienced this, Trevor. I think I've read some of your papers before, and I think you reflected this in some of your writing. But it seems like with what this paradigm that we're talking about, which I believe is the biblical paradigm, it's like a domino effect. You start with, here's Satan's lie: surely you will not die. That's the lie. As soon as you say, I don't believe that lie anymore, I am actually going to die, I'm immortal, I'm going to die, there's nothing in me that is going to live apart from the opportunity to be resurrected. I'm dead. When I'm dead, I'm dead. The wage of sin is death. And once you say, hey, that lie, it's no longer operative in my life, then all the other stuff starts to fall, like, oh, immortal soul, bam. Then, oh, roasting in hell forever and ever, ooh, bam. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I feel like once these little dominoes start to fall and you go, wait a minute, now I've got to re-examine that. Wait a minute, now I got to re-examine that. Wait a minute. It's actually kind of scary because the velocity at which you have to re-examine things.
Can I say something, Tim? See what you're saying
Yeah.
there. See the way we look at the world, like sort of look at celebrities and look at certain people and look at them. But when you look at what Jesus actually done, when you take away the dominoes and actually what he died for, he's the toughest man ever walked this planet.
Oh yeah.
The way he walked and conducted himself, self-control, patience.
Right.
You can see this the way the Lord, like the people mock him, but actually we're not fit to lace his boots.
Oh yeah.
No.
I mean, Jesus is the man's. He is the man, the most courageous man that ever walked this earth. I mean, who could be braver?
I think that's what
People, I think a lot of people just visualize Jesus what they sort of want him to be, sort of thing. Like
Right.
like conspiracy theories sort of could picture Jesus to be this anti-government rebel. Some picture him to be this really loving hippie guy.
Right.
But
Or even a
reality,
gay guy. I don't know if you remember, but Time Magazine several years ago did this big thing about, well, Jesus was gay because he leaned on the breast, or Peter leaned or John, or leaned his head on his breast. Whoa. Oh, God forbid that men should, lean their heads on each other.
I heard that one, so it
It's
is
just ridiculous.
ridiculous. But in reality, Jesus was actually quite a stern teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you read some of his parables and you're like, wow,
Well,
uh,
once,
the,
because they were gambling in the temple, there was a story where he actually flipped over the tables and all.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
go back
hey,
to domino, Tim, see a domino effect before I met you, before I went to Colorado, is I was going to Gospel Hall, the Brethren, and the John 3:13. So I was probably dumbed down a lot and sort of didn't think, I was just dumbed down. And then I started looking at first, and the pastor saying, look, at this says this. And then someone just showed me one bit of the domino. No man is ascended to heaven. I was, my wee brain was thinking, I'm not the smartest, but my wee brain was going, that's so simple to read. So when I was
right.
going to my pastor, I was really get the suit on, the Bible, really, really passionate about it, probably getting self-righteous a wee bit. And then I was like, this verse, why is this saying this? And then no one could give me an answer. And then I started getting, you're a cult, you're this. And when I went to Ian, everything he was saying was backing up with the scriptures. So that was a domino. Just
Yeah. Maybe some of you might have missed that, but Keith is referring to John, the Gospel of John 3:13. Now, I don't know, Keith, do you see, I look at John and I ignore the red. Some people have a red letter Bible because I think what's happening is Jesus is talking at times, but then John is giving parenthetical information. So I believe this is parenthetical information that John's giving, because it really doesn't make sense that Jesus would be saying it at this point. But he says, this is John 3. He says, let me go. I'll start at 9 when Jesus and Nicodemus are talking. Nicodemus said to Jesus, how can these things be? Because Jesus has just talked about being born again or born from above. Jesus answered and said to him, are you the teacher of Israel and do not understand these things? Truly, truly, I say to you, we speak of what we know and testify of what we have seen, and you do not accept our testimony. If I told you earthly things and you do not believe, how will you believe if I tell you heavenly things? Now that seems to be the end of where Jesus is talking. Is that what you were thinking?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then this is what Keith just referred to. John 3:13. No one has ascended into heaven, but he who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. Clearly, that's Jesus. We know that from Daniel, the Son of Man, right? As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that whoever believes in him will have eternal life or age-lasting life. So there, Keith, that was his. I think you said that was your domino. Wait a minute.
That was one. That was the big one. And then I went to church, and I think Tony went through the Greek in that. It sort of is talking about only the one. If Jesus came back, he's the only one that's ascended to heaven. So in the Greek, if maybe check your phone there, but no one's ascended to heaven. But if he descended, it's sort of saying basically, if Jesus came back, he's the only one that's ascended to heaven. So I couldn't. When I was like, right, is the church not seeing this? So I went into work with these DVDs, passionate about this resurrection of life. I got my eyes open to like, no one's seeing this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like here's one that I've noticed a lot of people don't want to pay attention to. The meek shall inherit the earth, not heaven, the earth. And yeah, that comes from Psalm 37. I counted, I think it says 6 times that either they use the word meek, humble, and righteous. And it says I think it's 6 times that the meek or the humble or the righteous will inherit the earth, the earth. It says it over and over and over again. And again, this is me at Sunday school class. I just keep trying to bring this up. Just think about it, everybody. I feel like the more I say it, even though why does he keep saying earth all the time? What's with this guy? But I feel like if I say it over and over again, somebody might say, wait a minute, it does say earth. Hey, Revelation says that we're going to be priests on the earth. Wait a minute. I thought we were going to be in heaven. I'm hoping that I can use that as a segue, to talk to people. I don't know, Trevor, what do you think?
I think it's interesting. There's 2 aspects to the meek inherit the earth, which in my former days I would have missed. One is the obvious one that you're mentioning there, the earth. The other is, being meek. So to many within churches, places where they study the scriptures, preach the scriptures, they don't really talk that much about the condition for not only what you're going to inherit, because they're telling us heaven, at the immediate point of death, it's going to heaven. So they're getting that bit wrong, because the scriptures are telling us it's earth. The inheritance is going to be experienced on earth. But the other part is your character is important.
Yeah.
There's a battle to go on here. We've got to learn how to be meek. We've got to learn what that means. We've got to learn about selflessness. We've got to basically take on the character of Christ. Right. We've got to follow him. And so there's that when you were talking about the dominoes and so many things falling down, that was kind of, in some respects, it was a liberating experience, because the scriptures are starting to make sense. Mm-hmm. But in another sense, you're left with, well, what's left? Now I have to actually study what the true gospel is, what it is. And there's this amazing promise that Christ will return, that all the things that frustrate us about the injustices in this world, the the rulers, the present rulers, and by that I'm just at the moment referring to the human rulers, but obviously there are other dimensions involved too. But these things are going to be corrected. It's not just going to be the Son of God; it will be the sons of God ruling with him, the rulers with him. That's only going to be the people who have learned to be meek like him.
Yeah.
Taking it on board, like Stephen was talking about those hard lessons, for example, to the rich young ruler, and all those other warning passages that are within the New Testament, and I'm sure many, many, many warning passages within the Old Testament. We've got a responsibility, a heavy responsibility, to take on, to develop that character. Now, thank God we've got a high priest to not only forgive us, not only the mercy of God through Christ as a high priest to forgive us for the things that we get wrong along this walk, but the grace also to change our character, the grace to look at the promise, the grace to see that promise of a hope, a future hope of resurrection, a future hope of participating in that kingdom. And when we set our minds on that hope, then by the grace of God, our characters should change because we want to live according to that hope.
Right.
We want to attain to it.
Yeah, one of the most haunting parables for me is that one where the guy comes into the party and he doesn't have the right clothes on, and the angels boot him out, and they're told, he's got to leave. And it's a lesson to me of presumption and I think this is a huge problem in the church. It can be a huge problem for me. I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking to myself too. When we presume things like, oh, I'm in the kingdom, nothing's going to happen. Once saved, always saved. Everything's fine. I'm good. And nothing that's dangerous. On the other hand, as a redeemed individual, I have a high priest who's pulling for me, who wants me in. He's going to do everything possible to represent me before the Father and say, Tim, I'm imagining what he might say. Tim is down there. He is depressed. He is fighting satanic powers. We need to give him some help. I just kind of imagine that's what maybe the intercession is. Or, man, I understand what Tim is going through. My family hated me sometimes, and they thought I was crazy. They wanted to keep me home and not go out to preach the gospel. And so I understand what Tim's going through. We have a sympathetic high priest. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So I live between the danger of presumption and the confidence in my high priest. And that's just, I until I hear, well done, good and faithful servant, I have to live in that tension, I guess.
Sure. But at the forefront of it all is the hope. It's Romans 8, I think 24. Now, I memorize a lot of King James, and sometimes, King James language gets it kind of wrong, which words that sound pretty good from the King James. We are saved by hope, but I think in other translations, it's in this hope we are saved.
Mm-hmm.
That struck me even this past week, that while, yes, there is a very serious struggle and severe consequences if we don't, live a righteous life. If we don't learn to die to ourselves, there are severe consequences. But the hope, what's saving us is the hope. What's the promise? Focus on the promise.
Yeah.
And we are basically being saved by the words that Jesus spoke, the words that God spoke throughout the scriptures. All these promises are laid out for us. And if we believe them, if we truly believe them, we'll respond to them.
Yeah.
Because if we truly believe in, and not just look upon it as some lovely theory or some lovely religion,
Right.
but a truth that this world, of course, it's going to laugh at that concept of Jesus returning again. Of course, it sounds ridiculous. Sometimes we might listen to ourselves and go, yeah, it does sound a bit.
Yeah.
Because we operate in this world, of course, we're going to sometimes think like that because we know how others think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if we hold on to that as truth, if we look at that as truth, then we'll respond accordingly. Then we'll realize, I'd better stop that sin.
Right.
I'd better start learning to deal with that and change my character.
So how do you guys you're coming together on is it a weekly basis you guys are coming together?
Yeah, on
And
some
do you
usually Sunday evenings. Yeah.
how do you encourage one? Do you read the scriptures together? Is there a one person teaching, or what does that look like when you're coming together?
Well, we did last year when we started coming together. I think at the start it was Bill. We listened to Bill. Tony actually was narrating one of Bill's essays on the high priest.
Oh, right, right.
Actually, though, what we did was we printed out Bill's essay. Sorry, we printed out Bill's essay and we just read it together. That took us, a couple of months. We took it, really, we maybe covered a few paragraphs each Sunday evening.
Mm-hmm.
Then Hebrews. We went through a good bit of Hebrews, maybe up to about chapter 6, chapter 5, chapter 6. We put a pause on that just simply because we, as a group, had only really reconvened and started to have these Sunday evening meetings maybe a year, well, just over a year ago. And so a lot of difficult stuff in Hebrews, a lot of tricky stuff. So we thought, you know what, we're probably better just listening to someone who has been consistently fellowshipping, teaching, studying these truths longer than us, because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We've got a lot of ideas. I'm sure a lot of them are correct, and I'm sure a lot of them are wrong. So we have to be careful about,
Right.
not sharing untruths. In other words,
yeah,
with
conjecture. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do at the moment is we listen to Ian. Series Ian is doing on worshiping God in the assembly. It's one of maybe he's only done it over the last couple of, I'm pretty sure it's only within the last couple of years he did. So we'll go through that. Hopefully, the goal is in in the long term that we can have more experience of studying the scriptures, talking it through with guys like you, Bill, Ian, Tony, and hopefully be ready at some stage, hopefully not in the too distant future, to be able to study the scriptures together. And we also will make sure to to break bread as well.
Yeah, that's what we it's funny, we're going to this, I guess it's a Southern Baptist thing. They only do communion quarterly, I guess. I don't know the rationales for that, but we actually went up to visit Steve Ramey and Marie Ramey, his wife, up in Kansas City, because now I only live like less than 3 hours from Steve Ramey, so that was great. But they're going to an Anglican church, and it's one of those Anglican churches that's not close to Catholicism in their practices. They're more closer to, I guess, the Book of Common Prayer and but it was great. It was the most worshipful. And I'm not a high church guy. I'm not a liturgy kind of guy, but I enjoyed the liturgy because it was just scripture. And I enjoyed taking communion finally, because I hadn't taken, and there was such a blessing. And Sabrina and I turned to each other and went, that was the most worshipful experience I have had in a long time. And of course, there's things I'm going to disagree with at the Anglican church too, of course. But overall, I would say it was a great, and maybe it was just that particular church and how it's run, but I really enjoyed it. And my son actually, my son came with me a couple weekends ago, and we went and watched a professional baseball game, and went to a World War I museum that was amazing. And then we went to church on Palm Sunday, and he came along with me, and it was great. He enjoyed it too. He said, man, that was one of the best Anglican churches services I've ever been to. So we're looking for we're willing to do different things, but we're like you guys, we're trying to stay encouraged from the scriptures. I listen to a lot of music. For instance, there's a group called Psallos, Psallos. I've posted on Facebook a number of times, but their thing is going through entire books of the Bible and doing them musically. So they've done Romans, Hebrews, Jude, and their latest is Philippians. And they are so creative. I cannot believe their songwriting. It's so close to the gist of the books themselves. It's really a delight. I'd highly recommend you guys. It's worshipful just to put on the headphones, and just listen to the way that the scriptures are being presented, because especially with your knowledge of Hebrews, they cover all the warnings. I mean, who does that? Who does musical warnings? Trevor, you're a creative music guy with your commercials. I think you would really enjoy just their musical creativity.
I'll have a listen.
Yeah, check it out. It'd be interesting to see what you think. Hey, I don't want to. I know you guys have to go night, so you can work. But I wanted to ask, because a lot of people, now I'm 62, and I remember going to Great Britain for the first time in 1978. Our drama teacher took us, and we spent a week in London and saw a bunch of theater because we were theater people. And then we rented a van and we went down to the White Cliffs of Dover and up into, I remember going to Clovelly, which is on the Devon coast. And then we went up to Scotland, Stirling, Blarethall. We stopped at Stratford-on-Avon. But whenever we got on the tube, the subway, there would be these warnings like, if you see a bag that's sitting by itself, please alert someone. And that's because of the Troubles.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know. Can one of you guys sort of summarize what was that period of history all about? I mean, I know that's a lot, but
we're kind of fortunate in one sense. The best people would have been our parents to ask them about the Troubles. Now we still, because we probably were about 20, maybe when they signed the Belfast Agreement was signed.
Right.
Which
that was when Clinton was president, right?
Oh yeah, sure. That was all him.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it was all him, but I mean, he was I'm just giving a time marker.
No. The Troubles would have been, I suppose we kind of missed the extreme of them because of, like my father, maybe he would have had several jobs which would have involved driving to various places, and he actually left his own bag one time in a bank, and I think he caused a bomb scare.
Oh, wow.
It was just his bag, but it was that kind of, it was pretty horrendous experience, during those decades.
So I mean, for people who don't know, it was sectarian differences in violence between the Protestants and the Catholics in Northern Ireland, and of course Great Britain had a police force to try to control what was going on. And
summary for you, Tim, if you want.
Stephen will give you a good summary.
Oh yeah, great.
You've got the whole island of Ireland, right?
Yeah.
4 counties. You've got Ulster, Connaught, four provinces: Ulster, Connaught, Munster, and Leinster. So whenever the UK used to be both islands,
yes,
all of Ireland and UK, and then there was a swelling of nationalist sort of spirit on the island of Ireland, which included Protestants and Catholics. Wolfe Tone was one of the big players in that. He was a Protestant, but once that all started to swell, long story short, the UK gave back most of the island and then kept 6 counties in Ulster, which is actually 9 counties, but Northern Ireland is made up of those 6 counties, and most people who were Protestants were probably based up in the north of the island. And the south of the island would have been mostly Catholic. So in the Troubles, it was basically the playing off between the Protestants and the Catholics. And then whenever you're saying about bags being left on tubes and GB, that was the IRA's way of trying to hit the British government financially and let them know that they're not happy, they want them out. So they would have put bombs all over the UK as well as in Northern Ireland. So the security was really heightened in those days.
Mm-hmm.
That's as quick as I can make it.
Yeah, and of course, I think some younger people, because they're big fans of The Crown, the Crown show, there's that episode where Lord Mountbatten's fishing boat blows up, and then the episode ends. It's a very dramatic ending to the episode. It might even, no, I don't think it was a season end. I think it was just an episode ending. But, a lot of people for the first time, wow, what was that all about? But anyway, I thought today it'd be interesting hearing your perspective, but thank you for that summary. But we can be thankful for peace. I know I often just stop and think to myself, here I am, I'm 62. I didn't get drafted into Vietnam because I was too young. I didn't get drafted into Iraq or Afghanistan. Somehow I just lived in this little portion of history where I didn't, thank God, have to go to war, except for, spiritual warfare or public school teaching, which is bad. Trevor, when I go to the store, like the Lowe's or Home Depot, they'll say, "Are you a veteran?" Well, does teaching count? Because it felt like warfare. That's what I always tell them. It felt like I was in the military. But anyway, yeah, I'm just so thankful that I live at a time of relative peace for my own, in my own little world.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught my interview with Spishik, my Polish friend, but I've been talking. He goes into the Ukraine, and I knew him from our missionary days in Kazakhstan. He used to do Bible studies and stuff, but he's gone to Afghanistan. He's been to Beslan, where the Chechens blew up a school and killed about 300 kids and teachers. And he's been to all these danger zones. He like courts danger. Like I tell him, man, you're like a James Bond. The way you love danger, but he's trying to bring stoves and things. And the stories he told yesterday about what the Russians are doing and what the Ukrainians are enduring, it's another world. It's like listening to primitive barbarism somewhere in the, way, 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 way back in time, just what's going on. And I just sit there and go, Lord, our country doesn't deserve special treatment. Obviously, look at what's going on in our country. Why? I'm thankful, but I don't sometimes understand why one country gets the hell beaten out of it, and then another country just seems to get off scot-free,
Well, maybe we don't get off scot-free, though. That's the thing. Maybe we won't. Perhaps
that's true.
Perhaps we've been, we've been treated to a lot of luxury, even speaking from a Northern Irish perspective, because the only troubles we really saw were up until not even 1998 when the agreement was signed. There was relative peace for a couple of years before that. Now there were there was the Omagh atrocity, which was a bombing in a town called Omagh. That happened a few months after the Belfast Agreement was signed. But by and large, this is a safe country to be in at the moment. But things would be fragile. I would say things could get pretty fragile here, politically speaking.
Oh yeah.
We're supposed to have our own devolved government, from so Westminster in London is the main British Parliament, main British government. Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland can have their own independent devolved governments, and ours hasn't been functioning now for a year, more than a year, probably more than a year, because they're refusing to, certain parties are refusing to sit with each other. Now, a lot of that is connected as well into Brexit. And Northern Ireland's position economically as a result of Brexit. So there's a lot of difficulties, and because these frictions exist, then maybe it's got the last 25 years things have been quieter politically, less or not on the sectarian front. Things have got quieter, but it hasn't gone away. The mistrust for each other, certainly the goals on both sides for what they ultimately want to have, they still exist. And I don't know. It's strange because you certainly don't want to be ungrateful for the peaceful times that we've had.
Yeah.
But you don't trust the foundation of it all.
Right. Well, and you look at what's going on here with school shootings and drug addiction and pornography. I mean, there's bad stuff everywhere. It's just I'm just thankful that I have a house that still has a roof. It doesn't have a bomb. Like Spishik showed me this guy in Ukraine who loved gardening, and now when he walks out in his backyard, there's a bomb crater in the middle of where his garden was. And I think of the therapy that my garden brings me. And I'm so thankful for little things like that. But anyway, hey, I've held you guys. Keith, did you want to say something?
There's only one thing that's going to fix all this. That's the kingdom. It's only thing that's going to fix it.
Amen. When the government is on his shoulders. Don't those verses in Isaiah just mean so much more to you now? The government on his shoulders. Oh, please, please.
The
But
whole
everything
Bible makes sense, Tim. Now, that's one thing I was going to say to you before. You see, the last 10 years, it's like been unbrainwashing ourselves from all sorts of stuff that's gone in. It's like taking those out. And once you do that, the thing that's blowing me away is, see, once you've got the right sort of framework, you understand the Bible. The dead are dead. The only hope is resurrection. Death is punishment. The promise is the kingdom. Inheriting the promises made to Abraham on the earth. Once you start to read the Bible with those, it just makes sense.
Well, and one other thing too is it resonates with men more, because if, as a man, when I hear that I get to rule and reign with Jesus Christ, and there's that verse in Malachi 4 where it says, it compares us to like calves locked in a stall, and when God pours out his wrath and sets us free into the new age, we're going to be like leaping calves jumping around, and the ashes of the unrighteous will be under our feet. That excites me. Now, playing a harp in heaven, that doesn't excite me. It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't resonate with me. But when you tell me, Tim, you're going to rule and reign on God's footstool, and he's coming down to his footstool to live with you, in the person of his son, that excites me. That does something as a warrior. I think as men, we're built to be warriors and fighters and saviors and sages and lords of the earth and husbandmen and all these things, these aspects, and to give God glory and to resemble his glory. And see, when you go to a Sunday school class and you tell little boys, well, someday you're going to be like an angel, and oh, you mean like those little girl cherubs? No, no, you're going to float around, and I guess you're going to play. I don't really know what we're going to do. But when you let the Bible tell you, like those letters to the 7 churches, they'll tell you what you're going to do.
Tim, sorry for interrupting you, but see what you're saying. See, like quality of life. Like we talk about this thing about the troubles and all. Someone's going to do harm to another person, which the whole cosmos is under that power to all generations. And then you see when Jesus came and he done all the miracles, raised the dead, blind. So that quality of life is going to be given in the resurrection. It's going to fix the whole thing. So man's going to keep going. And Tony always used to say to me this: you can sum it up in 3 things: money, power, and sex. That's the 3 things.
Yeah.
People, it's functioning. And it's,
right.
See, and I just think with your meditating about the troubles in different countries and wars, it's always to do harm to another person. And the root of it's pride, power, but Jesus came. And so that's the goal. The goal is that I want to be raised to life, to do what Jesus done, basically, raise the dead. You can see how it's going to be fixed. That's like basically, you can see the whole narrative. So he didn't. All the patriotics didn't die for nothing. They knew what the prize was, and I think I don't want to keep you, but sort of studying the running, and then you see how the body functions, and how the body heals, and how you create more mitochondrial stuff like that. Just it's right in front of you. His power is right every day. I look at my 2 kids, and I can see, and then Jesus says we have to become like a child, then enter the kingdom, and you can see it. It's just you have to be meek. I think when you start to swallow your pride and go, right.
And I think as you grow older, you realize that God, I don't know if you have this in colleges here, we say, I'm going to take a 200 level class, and that's like the basic level class. Then you need to take, for graduate studies, you might need to take a 300 level class. Do you have that kind of system there? You know what I'm okay.
No,
so, but the idea of a graduated difficulty level, right? Up to your doctorate. I feel like God gives you, like, at a certain period of your life, here's your 200 level class. Okay, good job. Now here's your 300 level class. Ouch. Ooh, that's painful. Okay, did you pass the test yet? Okay. Oh, good. Oh, now I can live happily ever. No. I'm laying you on an anvil, and I'm beating you into the image of my son. You don't understand. You have a long way to go. Now the 500 level class. Okay, you ready? Wait a minute. I can't take it anymore. Yes, you can. I'm with you. I feel like that's what life has been like for us anyway, the last, ever since we came back from Kazakhstan, because that was a big shocker. Just the stuff we went through.
There's only one way to enter that kingdom, and that's to pick up your cross and follow him.
Yeah. Amen. I know. It's simple, isn't it? I mean, it's simple to say, but it's
Yeah.
like, oh goodness, is it
Yeah.
ever different to live? You
Funny, I
know?
sent you something this morning when it talks about the pride of life, lust of the eyes, and lust of the flesh, and then doing the will of God lives abides in him forever, and into the ages. Them simple words are hard to do because you're always being challenged on your pride, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the
Right.
flesh.
Right.
But
And that's why we need to do what we're doing here today and what you guys are doing in Belfast and what we're trying to do when we try to encourage one another. We have to stay in the word. We have to know what the word says. We have to declare the word, even if people say, I've had people say, oh, that's too theological of an answer. What do you mean? Theological? You mean God talk? Well, I'm sorry, but that's where I get my answers from. You want me to just give you conjecture or wishful thinking?
I say something
Well, they
else.
just want you to agree with them, Tim.
Yeah, I guess so.
They just want you to agree.
Sorry for waffling about myself here, but see, like, so my death, see the concept of death when I was a wee boy. With my mum, I used to lie and cry about death, my mum down and things like that. I had this real concept of death from a very young boy. And then when my granddad passed away, it really hit me hard. So this whole heaven when you die, I wanted my granddad back. And then
Yeah.
it's like, I want him back. He's gone, I want him back. And this whole
Right.
concept was a big fear for me. But the resurrection life just filled the dots. It was the one that was
Yeah.
missing. See, and that's what you'd always say to me, faith's built on truth. So that you can see that God, so you can when you start to, I say this to my kids, when you start to study and meditate and like I never understood the cross and stuff like that, but you really start to understand, you see God's well in control. It's just having that faith
Yeah,
in it.
Right.
Hope.
I always found the concept of death really scary. In fact, the what the most of the world teaches, the concept of you either go to heaven or hell. I found the hell part really, really scary, and even it really used to make me very anxious about any family members ending up there.
Right.
So it did.
Right.
That's sorry, what Connor was saying there, come back. That's why I always think this concept of hell is actually burying the truth. Because the
Yeah.
good news, and not everyone's going to accept it, but the good news is delivering you from the power of sin. It's like Tony
Yeah.
always says, it's the, and you look at what's destroying us.
It's delivering you from death.
He's delivering you from that
Mhm.
land. It's everything that Jesus commands is actually a good thing. You're not going to lie to your neighbor. You're not going to
Right.
cheat. You're not going to covet.
Right.
You know, you're not going to do any of the things because
Yeah.
you're walking as well. Because
Yeah.
and the prize is the goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Just my thoughts just on that.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been great talking to you guys. I'm gonna cut it at this point. We've gone about an hour and a half, but we'll have to do this again. And if you guys could do me a favor and maybe just private message me or something on your prayer requests, things that be on. I mean, you don't need to air all your dirty laundry, but I want to be praying for you guys. So, but if you could be specific about things I could be praying for, and I'll do the same for you and let you know what you can be praying for. So let's keep each other in mind and let's keep encouraging one another. And I hope Sabrina and I have a plan. We want to go to Norway and we want to go to Belfast. That's our thing we want to do. And hopefully, in the next couple of years we'd like to do that and see you all. Definitely spend a good chunk of time in Belfast. And then I have a desire to show her some places I saw in 1978 when I was in, Scotland and parts of England that and we like to go we're into gardening. We watch Monty Don, Gardener's World. I don't know if you know that show, but he has we'd love to go to like a flower show, stuff like that in England. But so yeah, that's our plan. That's what we're hoping to do. And Steve Ramey and I are going to do another Kingdom ride, not this summer, but next summer in Austria. So if any of the Irish guys, anyone's interested, we're going to be studying First Peter and Philippians. He's going to teach First Peter. I'm going to teach Philippians, but it's about a 9-day to 10-day ride, and we meet in Vienna, and then we go down on the bike. Really easy ride. There's not a lot of climbing. It's pretty much railroad grade along the river. But if any of you are interested, let me know, and I'll keep you abreast of what's going on. But that would be July, like the first few weeks of July of 2000, I guess, or 2024. Yeah.
Will the bikes have stabilizers?
Stable. Yeah, you mean training wheels? Is that what you call them?
Yeah, I might need
Okay, we call them training wheels. We'll get you an electric bike, Trevor.
Oh,
So
cool.
you don't even have to pedal. I guess they do. They actually do rent electric bikes now.
Yeah.
Last time we went, we had so many older people that one young guy that was in his 20s said, "I'm going to call this the geezer ride." So yeah, we had people of all shapes and sizes and conditions. It's not a taxing ride. I don't think we go more than 25 miles. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but you know.
Oh, we do miles here. Yeah, miles. Is
Okay. Yeah. So we don't go. But one of the things that's a highlight is we go to Mauthausen concentration camp, which was the last concentration camp freed by the Allies, and that's a pretty intense experience.
Where is that? What country?
It's in Austria. It's all in Austria. We do take the train up to Passau, Germany, because that's the starting point, and then we rent bikes in Passau, Germany, and then we ride. And there's trails on both sides of the Danube, so sometimes we're taking a ferry across. But it's great. It's because we study the scriptures in the morning, and then in the evening, and then we're conversing about it all day long, and eating great food, and wine, beer if you're into that, and so it's a fun trip. It's a great trip. And last time we had like 9 guys on the trip. So
right. So you're expecting more than? Oh, I had assumed maybe you were planning it was just yourself and Steve. There may be others there then.
There's actually I have my biking friend, my close friend from Oregon is planning to come, and then I've recruited another guy I met at a church here who's wanting to come, and there's other people. So it's pretty much, I'm just getting the word out to people I think who would be interested in riding their bike and doing a Bible study, and encouraging one another. But it's always better if you can have an international group. I know there'll be a couple Austrians in the group, but it's nice because then we don't get like the American perspective. We get different perspectives, culturally, which I think is really valuable for people.
Yep, sounds good.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Well, hey, let me know if you guys are interested, and I can give you pricing. I can give you a rough idea of what the budget is and all for, you guys don't have to pay as much to fly to Vienna.
True.
You could probably take an electric bike there, Trevor. Take one of those Euro routes,
Well, you've got somewhere to stay here as well when you're.
Yes, I remember. Yes, I appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying your coffee cup.
I love the coffee cup. I love that coffee cup.
I still have some. I ordered actually about 10 of them, so I still have some to give away. And I got bracelets too. I have a bracelet here. It says, "You matter, mortal."
Yeah.
There was a big thing in Oregon. I think it started as an anti-suicide thing where it said "You matter" and stuff like that. Or we're in this together when COVID happened, which I had to laugh at because we're not in this together. You got people who are anti-mask and people pro-mask and we're not in this together. Are you kidding me? So anyway, this is it's my slam on Gnostics. You matter, mortal, as in you're made of matter, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So, and then on the other side, I have 1 Corinthians 15:21 through 23, which, basically says you're going to be resurrected when Jesus comes back.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, it's been great talking to you guys. I hope you understood my English. Okay.
Yes.
My thick Yankee accent.
It's better than ours. It's better than ours.
Better.
No.
You're going to have to go back in this video.
Are you kidding me? If I spoke with an Irish or Scottish or English accent, I would have had so many more girlfriends. It's a lady killer, when you speak an accent. I mean, the ladies love it over here.
Well, except for the ladies who live here.
Well, there you go. Then you got to have a French accent or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you guys have a great week, and don't work too hard. I'll try not to. I'm retired, so
don't rub it in, don't you?
Rub it in.
But definitely do it again.
Save your money, boys. Save your money. All right. We'll see you
Thanks.
guys.
See you,
Thanks,
Tim.
Connor.
Thank you very
Take
much.
care. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Connor.